Jai Yun stood at the window of the spaceship, looking at the stars. Her hands shook as she held a cup of warm tea. The ship was cold today, colder than usual. She pulled her thick jacket closer around her shoulders and tried not to think about her father's funeral last week. Jai Yun, come here, called Yun-hee, her stepmother, from the ship's main room. I need your help with something important. Jai Yun didn't want to go. Every time she looked at Yun-hee, she remembered how quickly the woman had married her father after her mother's death. But on a ship this small, she couldn't avoid her stepmother forever. With a quiet sigh, she walked to the main room. Yun-hee sat at the control panel, her long dark hair perfectly neat as always. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. We're passing an interesting planet. I think we should take some pictures for your father's research collection. Jai Yun's heart hurt at the mention of her father. He had been a famous scientist who studied different planets. Okay, she said softly. Which planet is it? It's that ice world below us. Yun-hee pointed to a white planet through the front window. The cameras in the escape pod will take better pictures. Why don't you go down and get some good shots? Something felt wrong. Why can't we use the ship's cameras? Jai Yun asked. They're not working well today, Yun-hee answered quickly. This won't take long. Just go down, take a few pictures, and I'll bring you right back up. Jai Yun walked slowly to the escape pod. She had a bad feeling, but Yun-hee was the only family she had left now. She had to try to trust her. The pod was small, with just enough room for one person. As she stepped inside, she noticed something strange. Her warm clothes were missing from their usual storage spot. Wait, she called out. I need my... The pod door slammed shut. Through the small window, she saw Yun-hee's face, now wearing a cold smile. Your father left everything to you in his will, Yun-hee said. He left me nothing. But if something tragic happens to you on a research trip, I inherit everything as your only living relative. Jai Yun's eyes went wide with fear. She tried to open the pod door, but it was locked from outside. Please, no, she screamed, banging on the window. Don't do this. Goodbye, dear stepdaughter, Yun-hee said, pressing the pod release button. The pod shot away from the ship like a bullet. Jai Yun watched helplessly as the ship grew smaller and smaller above her. The pod crashed through the icy planet's atmosphere, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. When it finally landed with a hard thud, the door sprang open. Freezing wind rushed in, cutting through her thin indoor clothes like knives. Jai Yun stumbled out onto the ice, her bare feet already going numb. The escape pod's engine made a strange sound, and she turned just in time to see it take off, leaving her alone. She stood shivering in the Arctic wasteland, wearing only her light shirt and pants. All around her, snow and ice stretched as far as she could see. The wind howled like an angry animal. Her toes were already turning blue. Help, she screamed, but her voice was lost in the wind. No one could hear her. No one even knew she was here, except the woman who had left her to die. Jai Yun knew she had only minutes before the cold killed her. Through tears that froze on her cheeks, she spotted what looked like a dark crack in an ice wall not too far away. Maybe it was a cave. It was her only hope. Wrapping her arms around herself, she started walking. Each step on the ice felt like stepping on broken glass. But she kept moving. She wouldn't let Yun-hee win. She wouldn't die here. The universe might be cold and cruel, but Jai Yun had survived losing both her parents. She would survive this too. She had to. Jai Yun's feet left bloody marks on the ice as she stumbled toward the dark crack in the wall. The wind tried to knock her down, but she kept moving. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, she reached the crack. It was just wide enough for her to squeeze through. Inside, the cave was dark and cold, but at least the wind couldn't reach her here. Her body shook so hard her teeth clicked together. She could barely feel her hands or feet anymore. In the dim light coming from the entrance, she saw that the cave went deeper into the ice. Keep moving, she whispered to herself. Just keep moving. Her people were stronger than humans in cold weather. It was one of the few differences between their species. But even she couldn't survive long in these temperatures without protection. She needed to find something to warm herself, and fast. Deeper in the cave, she found a small room where the ice walls sparkled with strange crystals. They gave off a weak blue light that helped her see. Even better, the crystals seemed to give off a tiny bit of heat. Jai-yun pressed her frozen hands against them, almost crying with relief when she felt a little warmth return to her fingers. She looked more closely at the crystals. They reminded her of something her father had once studied, special minerals that stored heat from the planet's core. These weren't very strong, but they might keep her from freezing to death. Jai-yun gathered all the loose crystals she could find. Her hand shook as she placed them in a circle around her. Then she lay down in the middle, curling up to make herself as small as possible. The crystal's weak heat was just enough to create a small warm spot. Hours passed. Jai-yun drifted in and out of sleep, always jerking awake when her body started to get too cold. Each time she woke up, she rearranged the crystals and rubbed her arms and legs to keep her blood moving. Her feet were badly cut from walking on the ice, but at least the cold had numbed the pain. When she wasn't fighting to stay warm, she thought about Yunyi. How long had her stepmother been planning this? Had she killed Jai-yun's father too? The thought made her stomach hurt, but she couldn't ignore the possibility. Her father's illness had come on very suddenly. A loud crack from outside made Jai-yun jump. She held her breath, listening. Was it just the ice moving, or was there something out there? She hadn't seen any animals yet, but on a planet this big, there had to be some kind of life. She needed to find real shelter, food, and proper heat. But she was so tired. The constant fight against the cold was draining her strength. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since breakfast on the ship. How long ago was that now? She had no way to tell time in this endless twilight. Just as she was about to try sleeping again, she heard something new. A low humming sound, coming from somewhere above the cave. It grew louder, then faded away. Then it came back again, moving in a pattern. Jai-yun's heart began to beat faster. That wasn't a natural sound. It had to be a machine, maybe a vehicle of some kind. That meant there were people on this planet. She tried to stand up, but her legs were too weak. She had to crawl to the cave entrance. The wind hit her like a slap in the face, but she forced herself to look up at the sky. There, a small dark shape moving through the clouds, with lights blinking on its sides. "Here," she screamed, knowing it was useless. They were too far away to hear her, but now she knew she wasn't alone on this frozen world. Somewhere on this planet, there was civilization. If she could just stay alive long enough, maybe she could find it. Jai-yun crawled back to her crystal circle, hope giving her new strength. She wasn't going to die in this cave. She just had to survive long enough for someone to find her. Hyun-ki checked the readings on his environmental scanner again. Something was wrong with the numbers. The heat patterns in this area didn't make sense. He adjusted his thick protective suit and looked at the ice formations around him. "Base, are you getting these readings?" He spoke into his radio. "Yes," Ta-won's voice crackled back. "The energy signature is unusual. Can you get closer to the source?" Hyun-ki walked carefully across the ice. The scanner led him toward a large wall of ice with a crack in it. As he got closer, his scanner started beeping faster. "There's definitely something in that cave," he said. "I'm going to check it out." "Be careful," Ta-won warned. "Remember what happened to the last team that went exploring caves without backup." But Hyun-ki was already moving toward the crack. His suit's lights showed him the way as he squeezed through the narrow opening. The cave wall sparkled strangely in his light beam. He almost missed seeing her at first. In the dim light, Jai-yun's pale skin blended with the ice around her. She lay curled up in a circle of glowing crystals, so still that for a moment Hyun-ki thought she was dead. Then she moved slightly, and his heart jumped. "Base," he shouted into his radio. "There's someone here. A woman. She's alive, but barely." What? That's impossible, Ta-1 said. No one could survive out there without proper gear. Hyun-ki knelt beside Jae-yun. Her clothes were thin and torn, and her feet were badly cut, but she was breathing. As he touched her shoulder gently, her eyes opened. Jae-yun looked up at what seemed like a giant in a huge white suit. She tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Was this real, or was she dreaming again? Don't try to talk, Hyun-ki said softly. I'm here to help you. He noticed something odd about her. Her skin had a slight shine to it that wasn't quite human, and her ears came to small points. An alien. Here, but she looked so human otherwise. Base, send the emergency transport, he said into his radio. And alert medical. She needs help right away. He took off his outer suit layer and wrapped it around Jae-yun's frozen body. Help is coming, he told her. Just stay with me. Jae-yun understood his words, but couldn't believe them. After so long in the cold and dark, someone had found her. Tears froze on her face as she tried to thank him. Hyun-ki saw her trying to speak again. Save your strength, he said. I'm Hyun-ki. I'm a researcher at the science station. Can you nod if you understand me? Jae-yun managed a small nod. The warmth from his suit was making her sleepy. She fought to keep her eyes open, afraid that if she fell asleep, she would wake up alone in the cave again. Stay awake, Hyun-ki said firmly. The transport is almost here. Just focus on my voice. He kept talking to her while they waited, telling her about the research station and the medical help waiting there. Jae-yun didn't understand everything he said, but his voice gave her something to hold on to. When the transport arrived, its bright lights filled the cave. 2 more people in suits helped Hyun-ki lift Jae-yun carefully onto a heated stretcher. As they carried her out of the cave, she grabbed Hyun-ki's hand. Safe, she whispered. Yes, he promised. You're safe now. The transport rose into the air, carrying them toward the research station. Jae-yun kept hold of Hyun-ki's hand the whole way, and he didn't try to pull away. Something about her touched his heart in a way he couldn't explain. He had many questions about who she was and how she got here, but those could wait. Right now, all that mattered was keeping her alive. The medical room in the research station was warm and bright. Jae-yun lay in a comfortable bed, surrounded by soft blankets and gentle healing lights. Mireille, the station's doctor, checked the monitors beside the bed. Your body temperature is almost normal now, Mireille said with a kind smile. You heal very quickly. Most humans would have died in those conditions. Jae-yun touched the bandages on her feet. Thank you for helping me, she said softly. Her voice was stronger now after 3 days of rest and care. How did you survive out there? Mireille asked, adjusting the healing lights. Even with the thermal crystals you gathered, it should have been impossible. My people are different from humans, Jae-yun explained carefully. We can handle cold better, but I still would have died if Hyun-ki hadn't found me. The door opened, and Hyun-ki walked in carrying a tray of food. He had visited Jae-yun every day since the rescue. Good morning, he said. I brought you breakfast. The cook made it special, extra warm. Jae-yun's face brightened when she saw him. The food on the tray smelled wonderful, but it was Hyun-ki's presence that made her happy. He pulled a chair next to her bed while she ate. The station director wants to talk to you today, he said. Do you feel strong enough? Jae-yun nodded. She knew this conversation had to happen. The humans needed to understand who she was and why she was here. She was afraid they might not believe her story about Hyun-ki. I'll stay with you during the meeting if you want, Hyun-ki offered. He had noticed how she tensed up at the mention of the director. Please, Jae-yun said. Having him nearby made her feel safer. Later that day, the station director came to the medical room. He was a serious man named Do-jin, who looked at Jae-yun with curious but kind eyes. Miss Jae-yun, he said, sitting down, we need to understand your situation. You're clearly not human, though you look very similar to us. Are you here officially from your people? Jai-yun took a deep breath. No, she said. I was brought here and abandoned by my stepmother. She wanted me to die so she could take my inheritance. She told them everything. About her father's death, Yun-hee's trick with the escape pod, and her struggle to survive in the cave. Hyun-ki sat beside her bed, his presence giving her strength to share the painful story. This is very serious, Do-jin said when she finished. If what you're saying is true, it means your stepmother committed a terrible crime. But it also means we've made first contact with your species in an unexpected way. What will happen to me? Jai-yun asked quietly. For now, you'll stay here and recover, Do-jin decided. We'll need to report this to Earth authorities, but that will take time. The storm season is starting, and communications will be difficult for the next few months. Jai-yun felt relief flood through her. She had months to get stronger and figure out what to do next. She wouldn't have to face Yun-hee or her own people right away. After the director left, Hyun-ki stayed. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, Jai-yun said. Thank you for being here. Everything on this planet is strange to me, except... She paused, then finished bravely. Except you. You make me feel safe. Hyun-ki took her hand gently. Then I'll keep making you feel safe, he promised. For as long as you need. Mayray watched them from across the room and smiled to herself. She had seen the way they looked at each other. Something special was growing between them. Something that went beyond different species or worlds. 2 weeks had passed since Jai-yun's rescue. Her feet were fully healed now, and she could walk around the station. Hyun-ki often walked with her, showing her the different rooms and explaining how everything worked. Today, they stood at a large window, watching the snow fall outside. Jai-yun wore warm clothes that Mayray had given her. She looked different now, healthier, stronger, and more confident. Tell me about your home, Hyun-ki said. What was your life like before all this happened? Jai-yun's face grew sad. I lived with my father in the capital city. He was an important scientist, like you. After my mother died, he married Yun-hee. She seemed nice at first, but things changed after the wedding. She turned to face Hyun-ki. My father was working on something important before he died, a way for our people to travel faster between stars. Yun-hee wanted his research, but he only shared it with me. Is that why she tried to kill you? Hyun-ki asked gently. Yes, father knew she couldn't be trusted. Before he died, he gave me a special data chip with all his research. I always carry it with me. Jai-yun pulled out a small silver disc from around her neck. Even in the cave, I kept it safe. Hyun-ki looked at the disc with surprise. This could change everything. If our peoples work together, we could explore the galaxy together. But first we have to stop Yun-hee. Jai-yun said. She won't give up looking for me. She needs proof of my death to claim the inheritance. Just then, Ta-won rushed into the room. Hyun-ki, Jai-yun, you need to see this. He held up a tablet showing a news report. A ship from Jai-yun's people just contacted Earth's government. They're looking for her. Jai-yun read the screen and her face went pale. That's Yun-hee's ship. She's telling everyone I'm missing, and she's searching for me. But she's lying. She's just making sure no one suspects her of trying to kill me. Hyun-ki put his arm around her shoulders. We won't let her hurt you again. We have proof of what she did. The escape pod's records, the medical reports of your injuries. But will it be enough? Jai-yun asked. Yun-hee is powerful in our government. Many people listen to her. Then we'll make them listen to us, Hyun-ki said firmly. Your father's research is too important to let her steal it. And, he paused, then added softly, you're too important to me now. Jai-yun looked up at him, her heart beating faster. In the past weeks, her feelings for Hyun-ki had grown stronger each day. He wasn't just her rescuer anymore. He was someone she cared about deeply. I feel the same way, she whispered. When I was in that cave, I thought I would die alone. But finding you, It changed everything. Taiwan cleared his throat. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to make a plan. Yun-hee's ship will reach Earth in 1 month. We have until then to prepare our evidence and protect Jia-yun. We'll need help, Hyun-ki said. Du-jin can contact Earth's government, and Mei-rei's medical reports will prove Jia-yun nearly died from exposure. Jia-yun squeezed Hyun-ki's hand. For the first time since her father died, she didn't feel alone. She had people who believed her, who would fight for her. And she had Hyun-ki, who looked at her with such warmth in his eyes that she forgot about the cold world outside. Together, they would face whatever came next. Yun-hee had tried to use the ice planet to destroy Jia-yun, but instead, it had led her to something precious. People she could trust, a man she could love, and a chance to fulfill her father's dream of bringing their peoples together. The research station's emergency alarm woke everyone at midnight. Jia-yun sat up in her bed, her heart racing. Hyun-ki rushed into her room a few minutes later. A ship just entered the planet's atmosphere, he said, catching his breath. It's not one of ours. Jia-yun's hands began to shake. Yun-hee, but she's supposed to be heading to Earth. She must have changed course, Hyun-ki said. Du-jin is calling an emergency meeting. Can you come? In the station's main control room, all the screens showed the approaching ship. It was larger than Earth vessels, with a sleek silver design that Jia-yun knew well. Taiwan worked at the communications panel, while Du-jin spoke with Earth authorities through another screen. They're demanding we hand over Jia-yun, Du-jin reported. They claim she stole important government documents and ran away. That's not true. Jia-yun protested. The research belongs to my family. My father gave it to me legally. Mei-rei, who had been studying the ship's position, spoke up. They're landing 10 kilometers from the station. In this weather, that gives us about 2 hours before they can reach us. Hyun-ki moved closer to Jia-yun. We won't let them take you, he promised. But we need to prove Yun-hee's crimes quickly. The escape pod, Jia-yun said suddenly. It recorded everything. The temperature when she pushed me out, my vital signs, the missing survival gear. The data will show she meant to kill me. I'll get the pod's records, Taiwan said, typing quickly. But Yun-hee might try to delete them remotely. Du-jin made a decision. We need to protect both Jia-yun and the evidence. Hyun-ki, take her to the secure underground lab. Mei-rei, go with them and bring medical proof of Jia-yun's injuries. Taiwan, download everything you can from that pod before they can erase it. They hurried through the station's corridors. The underground lab was built to survive any disaster. Its thick walls would protect them, and its separate computer system couldn't be hacked from outside. As they walked, Jia-yun held her father's data chip tightly. Even if they take me, she told Hyun-ki, I want you to have this. My father's research should help people, not hurt them. Hyun-ki took her hands in his. No one is taking you anywhere, he said firmly. We have proof of what Yun-hee did. Earth's government will help us. But what if they believe her lies? Jia-yun asked. She's very good at making people trust her. Then we'll find another way, Hyun-ki said. I didn't save you from that ice cave, just to lose you now. Mei-rei watched them with worried eyes as they entered the underground lab. She had all of Jia-yun's medical records, pictures of her frozen feet, data showing how close to death she had been. Everything that proved this was attempted murder, not a runaway case. Through the lab's security cameras, they watched Yun-hee's ship land in the snow. Dark figures in protective suits began moving toward the station. The storm was getting worse, but they kept coming. They're here, Jia-yun whispered, moving closer to Hyun-ki. What do we do now? Now, Hyun-ki said, holding her hand tightly. We fight back. With truth. The main doors of the research station opened. Yun-hee walked in with 4 guards, shaking snow from her expensive coat. Her face showed no emotion as she looked at Du-jin. Where is my stepdaughter? She asked calmly. I've been so worried about her. She's safe, Du-jin answered, which is surprising, considering how you left her to die. Yun-hee's smile didn't change. I don't know what lies Jia-yun has told you, but she ran away with valuable government secrets. I'm here to take her home. You mean you're here to finish what you started, said a voice from the doorway. Jia-yun stood there with Hyun-ki beside her. She held a tablet displaying the escape pod's data. The pod recorded everything. Yun-hee, Jia-yun said. Her voice was steady now. The missing survival gear, the temperature when you ejected me, my vital signs showing I nearly died. Everything. Yun-hee's smile finally dropped. Those records could be fake. You have no proof. Mei-ray stepped forward with her medical files. I have proof. Pictures of her injuries. Data showing the extreme cold damage. She survived only because her species is stronger than humans in cold weather. You knew that when you chose this planet. And we have more. Ta-One added from his computer station. Security recordings from your ship, showing you deleting the survival gear inventory. The pod's camera showing you smiling as you ejected it. Everything was backed up automatically to the station's computers. Yun-hee's face grew hard. None of that matters. I have authority here. Guards, take her. The guards moved forward, but stopped when Hyun-ki spoke. Actually, you don't have authority here. This is an Earth research station, and Earth's government has been watching everything through our cameras since you landed. The main screen lit up, showing faces of both Earth and alien officials. They had heard everything. Yun-hee, said one of the alien leaders, you have broken our most sacred laws. Attempting to murder a family member for inheritance is a serious crime. And attempting to steal valuable research, added another leader. Jia-yun's father left his work to her legally. We've checked all the documents. Yun-hee's calm facade cracked. You don't understand. That research could change everything. It should belong to the government, not this silly girl. The research doesn't belong to anyone now, Jia-yun said quietly. She held up her father's data chip. It belongs to both our peoples. My father wanted humans and our species to work together. That's why he trusted me with it. The guards looked at each other, then moved away from Yun-hee to stand against the wall. Yun-hee, the Earth official spoke. You are under arrest by both Earth and your government. Your guards will take you into custody until representatives arrive. Yun-hee looked around wildly, seeing she had lost. Her perfect plan had failed. The guards who had come with her now moved to surround her instead. This isn't over, she hissed at Jia-yun. Yes, it is, Jia-yun answered. She felt Hyun-ki's hand take hers, warm and strong. You tried to use the cold to kill me, but instead it led me to warmth I never knew existed. They all watched as the guards led Yun-hee away. She would face justice from both worlds for her crimes. The nightmare was finally over. Jia-yun turned to Hyun-ki, tears of relief in her eyes. He pulled her close, not caring that everyone could see them. In that moment, surrounded by friends who had helped protect her, Jia-yun finally felt completely safe. 3 months had passed since Yun-hee's arrest. Spring was coming to the ice planet, though the changes were subtle, slightly longer days and less fierce storms. Inside the research station, bigger changes were happening. The main laboratory had been expanded to accommodate both human and alien scientists. Jia-yun stood at her father's old desk, now moved here from their homeworld. She carefully transferred data from his chip to the new shared computer system. Your father would be proud, Hyun-ki said, bringing her a cup of warm tea. His dream of our peoples working together is coming true. Jia-yun smiled at him. Sometimes I think he knew this would happen. Why else would he give me the data chip just before he died? The door opened, and Du-jin entered with several alien scientists. They had arrived last week to start the joint research project. Among them was Jia-yun's aunt, Hae-yoon, who had taken over leadership of their science council after Yun-hee's crimes were exposed. The first test of the new drive system was successful, Hae-yoon announced. Thanks to both teams working together, We're years ahead of schedule. And Yunni? Jai-yun asked quietly. She hadn't spoken much about her stepmother since the trial. She will spend many years in prison. Haeyun assured her. The courts were very clear. Attempting murder for inheritance is unforgivable. Plus, trying to steal such important research made it even worse for her. Mayre came in with medical reports. The biological compatibility studies are fascinating, she said excitedly. Our peoples are remarkably similar. The main differences are just adaptations to different environments. Speaking of compatibility, Ta-Wan said with a grin, "When are you two making it official?" He looked at Jai-yun and Hyun-ki. Jai-yun blushed, her skin shimmering slightly in the way that showed her alien heritage. Hyun-ki took her hand and smiled. "Actually," he said, "we have an announcement. We've asked both governments for permission to marry. They approved it this morning. We'll be the first official union between our peoples." The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Haeyun hugged Jai-yun tightly. "Your parents would have loved him," she whispered. "He has their kind heart." Later that evening, Jai-yun and Hyun-ki stood at their favorite window, watching the sunset paint the snow in beautiful colors. The research station had become home to both of them now. "Do you ever regret landing on this planet?" Hyun-ki asked. "Even after everything that happened?" Jai-yun thought about it. "No," she said finally. "Yun-hee tried to use this place to destroy me. Instead, it gave me everything I ever wanted. Love, purpose, and a chance to make my father's dreams real." She looked at the ring on her finger, specially designed to show both human and alien marriage symbols. "Besides," she added with a smile, "I don't mind the cold anymore. Not when I have so much warmth in my life." Hyun-ki pulled her close and kissed her softly. Outside their window, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. Soon, thanks to their work together, ships would travel between those stars more easily than ever before. Their peoples would meet, learn from each other, and maybe find more love stories of their own. The ice planet that had once seemed like a place of death had become a place of new beginnings. As Jai-yun and Hyun-ki held each other in the starlight, they knew their story was just starting, and it would be more beautiful than either of them had ever dreamed possible.